my name is Chris Baker with Baker DMM, and this is our video digest newsletter. Topic of today's newsletter is going to be abuse by legal guardians. And before I jump into our discussion, I want to read you a statistic. It states that the National Center for State Courts, a nonprofit think tank, estimates that guardians across the country supervise 1.3 million adults and an aggregate of $50 billion of their assets, which is just a huge amount of people and a very huge amount of assets that guardians are helping manage and supposed to be protecting on behalf of the people that they're serving. And I have an article here from the New York Times, and it was an article that came out this past summer, back in July, and it walks through the story of a woman. Her name's Terri Black, and it relates to her and her father. And this Miss Black was an only child. It looks like her father lived in Las Vegas, and he had a longtime companion that he lived with. And this companion, whose name is Helen Natko, ended up at one point or another in this relationship, when the father's health had declined, had transferred something like $200,000 from one bank account to another, which ultimately led to this woman's criminal conviction. But I won't go through the whole article now, but basically Miss Black and her husband, Richard, flew to Las Vegas, this was a few years ago, to try to take over the financial affairs of her father. But what they found out was it was just a very extremely complex and difficult case, and ultimately they had to spend a ton of money and a ton of time fighting this woman in court. And really, it was a really huge pain, because this woman, Helen Natko, had actually become, she ended up becoming the guardian for this gentleman. And even though the daughter is the daughter, the court still wouldn't give access to the daughter to help with the financial affairs. And and it went on and on and on, and they, the daughter and her husband, they got their own legal team, and basically they countered and ended up suing and trying to get a conviction on Miss Natko, because they said, look, this woman is taking advantage of my father and his finances. She's the guardian, but she's not acting in his best interest. And ultimately they did, they proved their case and they ultimately won. But it was just a really a stressful situation for them, and it was not a fun experience, to say the least. And based on what this article is saying is that it's not, this happens quite often and probably too much all around the country. And there's some other statistics within this article that states, as we mentioned earlier, 1.3 million adults and an aggregate of $50 billion in assets managed. They found that in 2016, 8 cases it examined in 6 states, the guardians were found to have stolen more than $600,000 from their wards. And really a big reason for this oversight, or I should say a lack of oversight, is due to the fact that, within this article, the research that they performed, state courts cannot afford to hire enough people to monitor, and the key word here is monitoring, the well-being of wards to scrutinize the guardian's stewardship of assets. They also say that many judges who usually preside in probate or family court do not have the time or expertise to conduct more than a cursory review before granting a guardianship petition. So they say more than 10% of guardians are professionals, about 75% are family members or friends. And then in some states, they're updating how they handle these guardianship cases. I know it says in Minnesota, they require guardians to file electronic annual reports. And in this state, it's almost $1 billion in assets they manage. And then in Texas, they have looks like they've updated their process as well. So in 2015, legislature tried to get a funded 2-year pilot project. And they hired some more compliance specialists. And in that case, when those compliance specialists reviewed those cases, they found 48% of the cases were missing annual accountings, and about 10% auditors uncovered misappropriation of funds. So the Texas legislature approved $5 million for the hiring of 31 staff members to monitor nearly 55,000 guardians and $5 billion in assets. But the governor at the time vetoed that funding from the budget bill, noting in his statement, creation of new state bureaucracy should be a last resort. And so on that note, where I want to come in and just hopefully communicate to you all to be thinking in advance, whether it's you directly or your loved one, your parents, your grandparents, friends, whoever that may be. So we documented a case. There's an issue that there's abuse by legal guardians. I quickly went over some facts relating to a case in the New York Times. And then we addressed through this article that many of the government entities don't have the resources to effectively monitor all these guardians and all the assets that they're managing. And even when they do put in the time and the money to research and investigate, like in Texas, then the governor comes along and says, well, I'm going to veto this. We're not going to put $5 million in the budget because that should be a last resort. And just a little bit ago in the article, we mentioned monitoring. And if someone can plan ahead, whether it's the grandparent, the parent, or you watching, if someone can watch ahead and plan ahead and have their proper legal documents in order, be a power of attorney, an advanced health directive, and a will, those are your 3 key documents really all people should have. If you get that, particularly a durable power of attorney, financial power of attorney, that you should have someone that you trust and that you can count on to do to manage. If you become incapacitated, then at that point, they will start acting on your behalf. So you are in control. You're nominating someone to be your power of attorney. And if you do that, you won't have to go to probate court. There wouldn't be a need because you're going to have an advanced health directive, someone to be making health decisions for you, and you're going to be having someone to help make financial decisions for you. So you will not have to go to probate court. The only reason why someone goes to probate court is if they don't have someone nominated to help them. And if you could get those documents lined up, you can either have someone that you really know and really trust to do that. And from a financial standpoint, there's an opportunity for a company like Baker DMM, a professional financial services firm, to come in and to be that financial power of attorney, that durable power of attorney for you. And that way you know that somebody's going to be monitoring your accounts, watching what goes in and out of your accounts, and being an advocate for you, making sure your mail gets reviewed, making sure your bills get paid, and making sure that no one's taking advantage of you, no matter who that could be. And is producing a monthly financial statement for you or for your loved ones or other professionals that are helping you manage your health or your financial or legal world. So, the issue we talked about is abuse by guardians. And really the solution is being very proactive and hopefully not even having to get to a guardian state. And if you can get your documents lined up before you ever even need them or become incapacitated, to a point where you have Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, or have a stroke or something comes along and then you're not able to make these decisions. If you have all the documents in place beforehand, and if you have that trusted family member or friend, someone that it's an airtight relationship, you can get them to be that for you. Or if not, if you don't have that, or if you don't want to do that, then you could hire a company, a professional financial services firm like a Baker DMM, to at least be your durable power of attorney. And then that way that your case won't go to probate court, you won't have someone assigned that you don't want or you don't know, and that person who's acting for you is going to act on your best behalf and make sure that things get taken care of the way that you wanted them to. So if you found this information helpful or interesting, please feel free to share with your social media channels. This could be your family or friends or really whoever you think might benefit from viewing this information. And if you ever like for me to answer one of your questions in one of our video digest newsletters, you can go to our website, www.bakerdmm.com, scroll to the bottom and fill out the submission form, and we'll try to answer your question in one of our upcoming newsletters. And if you'd ever like to get my help directly, the easiest way is to go to our website. At the top, you'll find our phone number and a request an appointment button. And additionally, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll also find a PayPal button. And if you want to book a phone consulting session, just click on the PayPal button, enter your information. And with any of these options, we'll be in touch with you in 24 to 48 hours to schedule our appointment. And until then, I will talk to you all soon.